Welcome to Mr. Grimm's realm of the unseen. I'm Mr. Grimm, your guide to the supernatural and the spine-chilling. If you crave thrills and mysteries, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe and join me as we explore the darkest corners of the unknown. Are you ready to face your fears? The St. Louis Poltergeist. I never believed in ghosts. I was always the skeptic, the one in the group rolling my eyes when someone brought up the paranormal. But that changed in the summer of 1993 when I found myself drawn into the unsettling events that plagued my childhood home in St. Louis. I had moved back to my parents' house after college, seeking the familiar comfort of home. The house was old, its creaking floorboards and drafty corners lending an air of nostalgia. I often spent late nights reading or watching movies, the flickering light from the screen casting long shadows that danced across the walls. It started innocuously enough, little things that could be easily explained away. A glass of water left on the counter, only to be found in the living room. My mother swore she had placed it down just moments before, but I brushed it off as a simple mistake. The first night I noticed the flickering lights, I attributed it to faulty wiring. I was focused on my job hunt, dismissing any odd occurrences as stress-induced delusions. But then the sounds began. Soft tapping, like a child's fingers drumming on the wood. I would lie in bed, wide awake, trying to convince myself it was just the house settling. Yet each night, the tapping grew louder, echoing down the hallway. One evening, while I was reading in the dim light of the living room, the tapping morphed into a series of rapid knocks, a frantic rapping that made my heart race. "Mom?" I called out, the air thick with tension. No answer. I ventured into the hallway, the wooden floor cold beneath my bare feet. "Dad?" The silence was oppressive, as if the house itself were holding its breath. I stood there, straining to listen. It was then that I saw it, a shadow darting at the edge of my vision, disappearing around the corner. "Just my imagination," I muttered, my voice shaky. I turned on all the lights, the bright glow banishing the darkness, but the feeling of being watched lingered, a chill creeping up my spine. The next day, I decided to talk to my parents about what was happening. I found them in the kitchen, my mother stirring a pot of chili, my father reading the newspaper. I hesitated, unsure how to bring it up without sounding insane, but I needed to share my growing unease. "Have you guys noticed anything strange lately?" I finally asked, forcing the words out. My mother glanced up, her brow furrowing. "You mean besides the weird noises?" she replied, a hint of worry in her voice. "You hear it too?" I asked, surprised. "It's been going on for weeks," she admitted. "I thought I was going crazy." Dad put down his newspaper, a grim expression settling on his face. "I thought it was just the wind," he said, but I could see the flicker of fear in his eyes. That night, I decided to investigate further. Armed with a flashlight, I wandered through the darkened house, my heart pounding in my chest. The tapping began again, this time more insistent, almost angry. I followed the sound, feeling drawn toward the attic door. The stairs creaked beneath my weight as I ascended. The attic was filled with old furniture, boxes of forgotten memories. Dust danced in the narrow beam of my flashlight, and I felt an overwhelming sense of dread settle over me. I swept the light around the room, and then I saw it. A child's toy, a worn-out teddy bear, sitting on an old trunk. As I reached for it, the flashlight flickered, casting long shadows. Suddenly the air turned icy. A whisper echoed through the attic, barely audible but unmistakable. "Help me." I froze. My breath caught in my throat. The voice was soft, pleading, and utterly chilling. I stumbled back, the bear tumbling to the floor as I rushed out of the attic. The door slammed shut behind me with a deafening bang, the force sending a shiver down my spine. Panic set in. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was trapped in that attic, something that needed help. I spent the next few days on edge, the knocking growing more frantic, the whispers more distinct. I called a paranormal investigator, desperate for answers. They arrived one evening, a group of 4, armed with gadgets and a confidence I could only wish I had. As they set up their equipment, I shared everything I had experienced: the tapping, the whispers, the feeling of being watched. They nodded, taking notes, their faces serious. I watched as they moved around the house, stopping occasionally to listen or check their devices. They gathered in the living room, and one of them, a tall woman with an air of authority, turned to me. "We believe there's a spirit here, possibly a child," she said, her voice low. "But it's agitated. We need to establish contact." That night we held a séance, candles flickering in the darkened room. The investigators formed a circle, and I joined them, hands clasped. They called out to the spirit, urging it to communicate. For a moment there was only silence, the air thick with tension. Then the temperature dropped. I could see my breath. The lights flickered, and suddenly the table began to shake. A loud crash echoed from the kitchen. My mother's prize china had fallen, shattering against the floor. In that chaos, the whispers returned, clearer now. "Help me. Please." It was almost a sob, a cry of desperation that cut through the darkness. Tears stung my eyes as I felt an overwhelming need to reach out. "What do you need?" I shouted into the void, my voice trembling. The table jolted again, and then a heavy silence enveloped us. The investigators exchanged worried glances. "We need to end this," the tall woman said, her voice shaky. "It's too angry." But before they could act, the lights exploded, showering us with glass. In the chaos, the front door slammed open, wind howling through the house. I felt something cold brush against my cheek, and then it was gone. The investigators gathered their things, muttering about needing to perform a cleansing. The next morning, I awoke to an eerie stillness. My parents were already gone, leaving a note saying they had gone to stay with friends. I felt abandoned, but I understood. The house had become a prison, and I was trapped inside with whatever lingered in the shadows. Determined to confront my fear, I returned to the attic, heart pounding. I faced the door, steeling myself. "I'm here," I called, my voice echoing in the silence. "What do you want?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then the teddy bear rolled toward me, as if propelled by an unseen force. I picked it up, feeling its worn fabric. "You're not alone," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "I'll help you." The temperature dropped again, but this time